All right, good afternoon. My name is Captain Kevin Odit. I'm the sector commander for Houston Galveston and responsible for all Coast Guard operations and Coast Guard forces in Southeast Texas. It's my honor to be able to introduce Rear Admiral Nadeau, District Commander, 8th Coast Guard District. Admiral.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Great to be here. I am from New Orleans. We cover the 26 states in the central region here, including the Mississippi River Valley and all the coastal Gulf Coast. We just returned from doing an overflight over the affected areas to see some of the flooding from above. We were able to see some of the impacts of our hearts go out to those that are suffering right now from this terrible situation that they're facing. We did land and did visit the EOC and saw some of the local officials, including the mayor and the judge, and had a great visit. I'm proud of all the Coast Guard members that have stood up, that were prepared. This is what we do. We prepare for events like this, and they were ready. We had boats deployed within Port Arthur itself. They were on the water as soon as possible, as soon as it was safe to get out there and start effecting rescues. We saved dozens of people. I'd say we're still tallying the numbers, but at least I'd say about 100 people, many that were in critical medical need of attention, and we did those via airlift with our helicopters right here from Air Station New Orleans. We had people from the air station, people here from the sector, and people out there at the Marine Safety Unit, and people traveling as far as Memphis to get down there and help with this again, the conditions that we had in the high water. But we're grateful for the whole team effort, and all the partners that supported us as well. And we're very privileged to have with us today both Senator Cruz and also Congressman Weber, who joined us on the overflight. And I'm very pleased to turn it over to Senator Cruz. Thank you, sir.
Admiral, thank you very much. Captain, thank you very much. Thank you both for your tremendous leadership, which we're grateful for each and every day, but especially in times of crisis and times of natural disaster. And let me say first of all to all the Coast Guardsmen, to all the first responders, law enforcement, firefighters, and EMS, and to everyone that stuck their neck out in this time of flooding, as the floodwaters were rising, as people's lives were in peril. We saw what we see and have seen over and over again in Texas. We see heroes rising up to save the lives of their brothers and sisters, rising up to save the lives of their friends and neighbors. And alongside the Coast Guardsmen, alongside first responders, we see once again ordinary Texans getting out, seeing a friend in need, and risking everything to pull someone out of harm's way. This flood situation with Imelda is serious. There are a lot of homes that have been affected here in Harris County, but also going to southeast Texas. We just finished doing a flyover in the Coast Guard plane flying over many of the affected regions. Towns like Winnie that were flooded badly. Beaumont has upwards of 1,000 homes that were flooded. We went to the Emergency Operation Command and met with the leadership on the ground. And you know, one of the things Texas is blessed to have is local leadership, local leaders, county leaders, who are experienced, who this is not their first rodeo. They've been through disasters before. Just over 2 years ago, all of us went through together the incredible tragedy that was Hurricane Harvey. And when Harvey struck, we saw the very best of Texas. We saw Texans coming together, uniting, standing as one. And we're seeing that again right now. We're seeing that same unity, that same courage, that same strength, that same compassion. And that is really, that's the face of who Texas is. It is that Texans helping Texans that define who we are. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who made a difference when lives were hanging in the balance, but who are also making a difference now as families are in shelters or families are going back to their homes and seeing the damage. And it's going to be a process to do recovery and to rebuild, but we will rebuild, and we'll come through this even stronger than before, because that's who Texas is. That's who Texans are. We stand with each other, and right now today, for everyone impacted by these floodwaters, know that the entire state of Texas is standing with you, standing united, and we'll come through this. Congressman Weber.
Well, thank you, Senator. Thank you all. And I want to add my word of gratitude to y'all, Captain and Admiral, and the entire crew. You know, I've grown up on the Texas Gulf Coast, lived in a 20-mile radius, 66 years, 8 months, and 17 days. Not that we're counting. And I want to say that Hurricane Carla was my first one, and we watched Hurricane Ike. I've watched Hurricane Harvey, and now Imelda tropical storm, and our great Coast Guard is always there. I am absolutely impressed by the readiness, the professionalism, how they put their lives on the line every day. So often, mostly for people they will never meet or really ever know until something bad like that happens. So I am just so proud of our Coast Guard. And as I told y'all, my uncle served 2 years in the Coast Guard, and I just can't tell you how proud of y'all I am. The senator's right. You know, Texas will come back from this. Harvey and Imelda may have brought the downpour, but you saw Texans bring the outpour. You saw Texans get in gear. You saw Texans make a difference. You saw neighbor helping neighbor. Again, many of those who they didn't even know. They risk everything, as Senator Cruz said, for that. We're going to come back stronger. We appreciate our great governor coming in with a disaster declaration. We've sent a letter to the president asking him to make a federal disaster declaration so that we can bring all of our federal assets in. And I just want to say to the great folks in Southeast Texas, help is on the way. This is a great place to live. Please don't get discouraged. Industry is kicking and helping. Neighbors are kicking and helping. You see what our great Coast Guard's already done, our first responders in all facets, all around the country, all around the county that's affected here, the local officials that Ted talked about. And things are going to get better. There's going to be a lot of help on the way. Yes, we've got work to do. We've got some remediation to do. We've got some infrastructure work to do. Count on your senator and your congressman to go to work for you in Washington, D.C. to get those funds so that we can begin to prevent as much of this happening as we possibly can. So I want to say thanks again to our great Coast Guard. Thank you for hosting us. The 2 pilots and the flight crew, folks, it doesn't get any better than that. I will tell you what, they're professionals. They got us over there. We got to get up and see an aerial view of the area. It breaks your heart to see all of the things. They never faltered. If we wanted them to bank one way or bank another way, they did everything we asked them. And they got us over there in a timely fashion. We got to meet with the mayor, as the senator said. So my hat's off to the pilots and the flight crew. Hats off to the Coast Guard. And again, thank you, Admiral, for being here. Captain, for you constantly being here. Senator, for you too. So thank you all very much for what y'all are doing.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate y'all.
Thanks, sir.
You bet. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it.
And we're happy to answer any questions if you guys have any.
Well, we've gone through this before, like
Yeah.
you said, and Congressman talked about getting some relief.
Yeah.
What did you say to people about preventing this? I mean, this was a
Right.
tropical storm, not a Cat 3 or 4. What are we going to see in the future to help prevent this for dredging and pumping stations?
Well, listen, living on the Gulf Coast, hurricanes are a fact of life. I grew up here in Houston. I remember being here for Hurricane Alicia, seeing the tree come down in our front yard, and then that's part of living on the coast. But we can also do more to enhance resiliency, to fight against susceptibility to floods. And I'll tell you, we really saw in the last 2 years the Texas congressional delegation have a unity that was really remarkable. When Harvey struck just over 2 years ago, the devastation on the Gulf Coast was massive. And following that, I was proud to join with my colleague in the Senate, Senator John Cornyn, and the two of us led the fight in the Senate, and the entire Texas congressional delegation, bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, stood united, and we led the fight to lead multiple major disaster relief packages through Congress to ensure that the resources get to the ground. And a big part of that is, as we're rebuilding, to rebuild in a way that's smart, to rebuild in a way that mitigates the risk of flooding. You'll never eliminate it completely because we're on the Gulf Coast, and that's one of the realities, but we can build in a way that reduces those risks. And, you know, in the wake of Harvey, I took several members of my official staff, and I reassigned them to do nothing but full-time Harvey relief. And they spent over a year. Every day, their entire job assignment was talk to the county judges, talk to the mayors, talk to the police chiefs, talk to the school superintendents, understand what the challenges are on the ground, and then facilitate the federal response. And at this point, we've got a lot of experience with the alphabet soup of federal agencies that play in the wake of a natural disaster, whether that is FEMA or HUD or HHS or the Small Business Administration or the Department of Education or the Army Corps of Engineers. And so we work every day. Randy and I just finished visiting with the Jefferson County judge. They're facing all sorts of challenges there from this flooding from Imelda. One of the issues that I talked with the judge about was whether the mosquito population, they're going to see a significant increase in the mosquito population following the flooding. We don't know that yet. It's still early. The assessment is there, but I can tell you I'm committed. I know Randy's committed, and the delegation is committed to ensuring that the federal resources that are needed are deployed on the ground. You know, I'll also say one challenge that we're going to face in Southeast Texas is a transportation challenge. As part of this storm, we saw several barges come loose, and one in particular hit the bridge on I-10. And we flew over that bridge several times. In fact, flew over, and it took out, on one side of the freeway, of the 4 pylons under the freeway, it took out, damaged 3 of the 4. That means right now that I-10 is shut down traveling. That's obviously a major artery of travel in this region. And I know the federal officials are working hand in hand with TxDOT, bringing in the structural engineers to assess, all right, what's the damage? How quickly can we get that fixed? That's going to take some time. Just having seen the damage firsthand, obviously they're not going to allow cars and trucks to get back on that freeway until it's safe, until people's safety can be ensured. That means we're going to be rerouting traffic patterns. That's going to be a real impact on commerce, on people's lives, on getting to work, on taking your kids to school. And you know, what we can commit to is that the federal officials and state officials and TxDOT are going to work as quickly as possible to reopen that travel, but rebuilding that is going to take some time.
Now, we're streaming this live, but can you tell me, is this also a reminder for people to always keep that kit ready? A lot of people were caught short. They didn't
Well,
have
absolutely it is. And let me add something to what the senator said too, and that is that you're beginning to hear, to your question about where we're going to prevent this from going forward, things like this. You're hearing talk about a regional plan now for flood control and for drainage. You're seeing the federal response has been to give the Army Corps of Engineers more money than ever so that they can come in and do projects. You're hearing the president who's saying, look, we got to get these permits, not, you know, of course, out of the Army Corps, out of some of the others, but specifically in this area, out quicker, out faster. Our staff has worked with the Army Corps on some projects up and down the Sabine Neches waterway. They're doing everything they can. We've got to get to this as quickly as we can. We've got to make this where we can keep this from happening going forward. You're going to see the federal government kicked in. Me and my chief of staff have met with the GLO in Austin not once but twice about this process, because we want them to interface with federal agencies. We want the relief money flowing as quickly as possible. We want project money identified, projects identified, permits let, and all of those done as quickly as possible so that we can get together, come together, and create a safer Southeast Texas. I think you're going to see that going forward.
Well, and let me echo something Randy just said. I was with the president at the White House the day before yesterday, and he turned to me and committed directly. He said that the federal government is going to do everything it can to expedite the approval of pipelines in Texas. And if you look at the economic boom, the prosperity that we're enjoying here in Houston, throughout the Gulf Coast, energy and the shale renaissance is playing a huge part of that, and removing the bureaucratic red tape and the delays and speeding things up, that is producing thousands of jobs in the state of Texas. I commend the president for helping expedite that process. And you know, it's an interesting time to reflect on it. We've seen just in recent days, we saw Iran fire missiles at Saudi Arabia and take out about half of Saudi Arabia's production capability. And yet, in the face of that, we haven't seen the U.S. economy go into a dramatic decline. If that had happened 10 years ago, taking out half of the Saudi oil production would have been devastating to the U.S. economy. But the reason that we're able to absorb that blow is because of the Permian Basin, because of the exploration that Texas is leading. And so we have seen literally in the past week a demonstration of how the good people of Texas and the good people of Houston, my hometown, leading energy innovation, have made America stronger, more energy independent, have turned America into the #1 producer of oil in the world, the #1 producer of natural gas in the world. And it is that energy independence that is enabling us to be strong and resilient economically and keep seeing economic growth.
So all the more reason to keep Houston from not shutting down every time we have a storm.
Right, and you're going to see that. You're already seeing, if you're following coastal barrier protection, what the Corps is doing there, how important that is to protect people's lives, their families, their homes, their residences, their jobs, industry along. And I want to add something to what the senator just said. All of the energy independence that he's describing, and the fact that we're not so negatively impacted by what happened over in Saudi Arabia, is described in 2 words: Texas fracking. And so just remember that energy independence. This area is huge for the state, huge for the nation, and I would argue huge for world, and so that the United States is strong, we maintain a strong military, we maintain a strong economy, and the world is a safer place as long as we don't have chaos over here. Very important.
Last question?
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. Sir.
Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you, Admiral.
Thank
Sure,
you.
nice to be with you.
Thank you. Shot you not good pictures.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope you brought a short straw.
We're hurting